Hello, lords and ladies. Coming to you live from my room again. This is Mr. Kadashovitz. This is section 2 notes for chapter 5. These shouldn't be very long today, then we'll talk about your assignment. So let's talk about one of the big problems that drove a divide between the English master overlords and the British colonists, which we call now Americans, after the French-Indian War. If you guys remember when we left off, the French have left North America. They've sold what they had left to Spain. Everything else was taken by the British as in the Treaty of Paris. So they're gone. And this area is now open to British settlement. The French were over here before. And remember, the whole war was fought over the Ohio River Valley. And so now the colonists in areas like Virginia, Carolinas, Pennsylvania want to move into that valley. And of course, what's getting in their way is the Native Americans. Native Americans got along extremely well with the French. French settlers and traders married into their tribes, traded with them, treated them like actual business partners. And then when the French lost and left, they were stuck with the British. And the British have a history of massacring entire villages, starving them to death, forcing them off the lands, doing all kinds of nasty things. So as it was looking like the British were going to win, a group of Native Americans led by a guy named Pontiac, and this is him, starts to put together an alliance. And it's really rare for Native Americans to work together at this time period. They're very individualistic. They don't have a sense of unity. They're loyal to their tribe. They're not loyal to any concept of all Native Americans. They're just Ottawa and Potawatomi and Chippewa. So for them to pull off an alliance means they're really feeling threatened. And Pontiac puts together a group of people around Detroit. Now, we know that they're from around Detroit because this is our other version of Pontiac. This is one heck of a beautiful Pontiac Firebird. Cadillac is also a Native American leader from around the area. So we've named a lot of our cars after Native Americans who fought the white man. But this is a Pontiac, and this is a Pontiac. So he's going to lead an uprising, and he's going to be really successful. The British have it really set up out on the west. They're not really capable of defending themselves very well, and certainly these settlers out there have no way to defend themselves against a large attack of Native Americans. So he's pretty darn successful. He takes out 6 forts out west. He kills 2,000 settlers. Now, most of these were soldiers or men defending themselves, but not all of them were. The settlers overreact by killing every Native American they can find. And this is going to be an ongoing theme for settlers in America is they treat all Native Americans like one race of people. And that is just not true for Native Americans. The people in the East, the Native Americans in the East had nothing to do with this. The Native Americans in the South had nothing to do with this. As a matter of fact, the natives in the area of Pontiac, who weren't allied with Pontiac, had nothing to do with this. So the settlers start just slaughtering Native Americans they find on the road, or finding peaceful villages, killing everybody they see, combatant or non-combatant. They just start killing all of the Native Americans. This, of course, creates an emergency for the British government, because obviously killing settlers is bad, but killing every Native American you find is going to be a war. And the British simply can't afford to defend everybody out on the frontier. So what they do is they ban all settlers, all American colonists, from going west of the Appalachian Mountains. And the Appalachian Mountains come right down here. Okay, so all of the settlers had to stay east of those, which means they couldn't go into the Ohio River Valley. They couldn't go to the point, the whole reason we fought the French and Indian War, and that's because the British government simply couldn't protect them. They were going to create a war. They were overreacting. There were not enough British soldiers, and the government didn't have enough money, and we'll talk about that tomorrow, to man the forts and to protect all these settlers. And they knew that the settlers would be vastly outnumbered and incapable of protecting themselves. So the government of Great Britain bans settlement west of the Appalachian Mountain. And because we're good Americans, we simply ignore that order, and we go over there anyway. And the British government says, look, you're on your own. If you want to go over there, we can't defend you. So don't do it. It's dumb. You're vastly outnumbered. you're going to get slaughtered, as many already have. So just don't do it. And the colonists say, first off, I do what I want. But secondly, what are we paying taxes for? Why are we paying taxes if you can't protect us? And this is the wedge that gets driven in between the British and their colonists. This creates a gulf for two reasons. First off, the British colonists start feeling like they're not really British colonists anymore. They start feeling like they're members of this new America, because if the British aren't going to protect them like a citizen, they shouldn't have to act like a citizen. Also, what's the whole point? I mean, what's the whole point of the French and Indian War? What's the point of dying? What's the point of the taxes if we're not going to get the rewards of it? Okay, the colonists were extremely proud of what they contributed to the war. They not only gave men, but they gave money. They opened up supplies. They fought the Native Americans. I mean, on a more limited level than certainly than the British government, but they did contribute. And now the British government is kind of abandoning them and telling them it wasn't worth it. You don't get the rewards of that. So the colonists start acting like they're not British, that instead they are Americans. They're colonists. Yes, technically they're part of the British Empire, but they relate to each other more than they relate to any person from Great Britain. And this is the first crack we see in the relationship between Great Britain and the colonists. Up until this, including the French and Indian War, they got along fabulously. And that's pretty much going to start dying right now. And within about 15 years, we're going to have a Revolutionary War. And it starts right here. All right, tomorrow we'll talk more about further distancing between the British and the colonists. And it's going to have a lot to do with money. But let's talk about what I'm asking from you today for your assignment. In Google Classroom, I can't show you where specifically because each class has a different version of this. But in Google Classroom, you'll find 5-2 first half open-ended response, 7th hour. There are 3 questions here. Think of each one like a warm-up activity. Okay. Look at the first question, answer it in 3 to 4 sentences. Look at the second question. Click on here. Answer it in 3 to 4 sentences. Answer this one in 3 to 4 sentences. Okay. There are questions about the notes. There are questions about everything that's going on. It's asking you to apply some knowledge and what would you do, et cetera, et cetera. Then just submit that. You can submit it like any normal quiz, and that's going to be what you get graded on. I'm looking for effort here. A lot of these are open-ended questions, which means there are right answers, but there are also wrong answers. If your answer is based on what you've learned, and you can kind of I can link it back to stuff we've learned, I'm very happy. If it has nothing to do with what we learned, you're going to be very sad. So make sure you do a great job on this. Please email me with any questions you have whatsoever. Have a fantastic day.